Welcome to the She Did It Her Way podcast, where it's all about making the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5 and building a business and life you love, all while doing it your way. I'm your host, Amanda Boleyn. Let's get started. Hello, friend. Happy Monday, or whichever day you are tuning in. We are officially in the month of February. So many insane things happening. I feel like January was a blink of an eye. It just went by so fast. If you need another reason to make sure that you are taking massive action to accomplish your goals and produce the results that you want, the time is now. And make sure that you are taking action from a place of abundance, a place of more than enough time, a place of confidence, and knowing that you can achieve whatever desire you wish in this world. Today, I'm actually sharing with you how I organize my life and business, including finances, as it relates to how my husband and I manage our finances. And I'm actually really excited to share our process, because this process that we started using and implemented probably a little over a year ago, maybe I'm excited because it was my idea, but honestly, I'm more excited because it really helped us solve some of the problems and challenges we were having with not sticking to a budget. So I'm really excited to share that with you in hopes that maybe even if you find a little bit of nuggets or something that you can take back that can help you, that's what this podcast is here for. This podcast is inspired because I heard someone else do it on their podcast, and I thought it was just a great way to share some behind the scenes and give you some ideas on how you might want to implement some of these strategies in your world. Because one, if you have been tuning into the podcast for some time, then you know that one of my love languages is organization. I am very much a Capricorn in that sense. I've been known to help friends clean out and organize their closets on a weekend simply for fun. This happened just this past summer. A friend of mine moved and she had some back surgery and helped her on Saturday, and it was Sunday morning and we were texting. I'm like, I'll be over right away. I want to help you. And I was like, no, really, it is my pleasure, because to me, it's so fun. And I get that not everyone feels that way about organizing and all of that stuff. But I mean, even when I was in junior high, I also had a friend who was pretty messy, and every time I'd go over to her place and hang out with her, I'd actually want to clean and organize her bedroom and her closet because stuff was everywhere. And I just got so much enjoyment out of it. And I still do. And my husband and I will even find ourselves on a weekend cleaning out our place and organizing our personal life, including making sure all accounts are up to date, going through our insurances, making sure we're maximizing them and making sure that everything makes sense, making sure that all of our monthly expenses or quarterly or annual are on auto draft so we don't have to think about it or worry about it. We keep our space pretty clean. And it's really important for me with my physical space for it to be clean and organized, because if it's a mess, it is harder for me to focus. So it's really important to make sure that it is easy to keep a clean space. And by doing that, we don't have a lot of stuff. I very much live by the rule that everything has its place. So whether it's a set of car keys, digital photos, important documents, you name it, because when everything has its place, it becomes easier to find. One example, and I'm pretty sure I shared this on the podcast, is that if you've ever gone into a room with the lights off and you've tried to navigate your way through the room, you have to go slower. You're in fear of I don't want to stub my toe. I don't want to wake someone up. I don't want to run into things. And that is how I attribute that when there's not a system of any sort of organizing in place, we move a lot slower, where once we have that system in place, it's as if we flipped on the switch and we can see exactly where we need to go and what that looks like and where everything's at, so we can navigate much faster throughout that room. And this month inside Elevate University, our membership program, we're actually focusing on how to be scalable from the start, including organizing digital life from email, Google Drive, Asana, and more. Let's go ahead and dive in. So I'm just going to share really quick, some of the personal things, how I organize that. My husband, Mike, and I, we have a shared Google Drive and a shared calendar. And inside the Google Drive, we have folders for everything from finances to insurances to taxes for each year, information on the building that we own. That way, anytime we receive a document or a bill, it makes it so much easier to know how to organize and store it, because we've already created these folders for it as well. The other thing that I'll say from personal, and this is kind of business, is that I personally have a separate Gmail account for my personal Gmail, and then I've got a business Gmail account. I don't bring them two in together. It really helps separate and create focus, and it's so much easier to turn on the brain of personal stuff and then turn on the brain of business stuff based on which email that I'm working in as well. Another thing, Mike and I have a shared Asana dashboard. So we keep track of tasks and things that need to get done. So for example, if one of us needs to review a charge on a credit card that we're not really sure where this came from, we can pop it into Asana and assign it to whoever it needs to be to. And it really helps us stay on top of things. And I shared, we don't keep a lot of, if you come to our space, there's just not a lot of clutter. It's very minimal. And we recently did a massive clean out of things after watching a Netflix documentary, Less is More. And I actually honestly thought, I'm like, okay, we can try to purge and we can try to like remove stuff. And I didn't think that we could, but we ended up putting together 3 bags of clothes and still then some, because as we go through every day, we recognize how much stuff we don't actually use, which then also even strengthens the qualifying process of bringing in more stuff to our space and making sure that we're super intentional about it and making sure that it brings us joy and it's important to us. Same thing with clothes. I really try now, if I want to buy clothes, I wait 24 hours and then remake the decision, because usually if I'm in that moment, I'm very emotionally driven. And if I give myself 24 hours, it's a way for me to really assess and think, do I need this? Do I even want this? And what purpose does it serve? Organizing, do a reset almost every night. And what I mean by reset is just making sure that dishes are in the dishwasher, living room is picked up, and everything is ready to go for the next day. Now, sometimes this isn't always achievable. And when that happens, I default to setting a timer for 10 minutes and doing as much as I can in that 10-minute window, just to give me a little bit of an edge, because I know that if I wake up in the morning and everything is put away and organized, the benefit that I get from that far outweighs anything else. But obviously life happens and sometimes it's unavoidable. So in that case, if I go to bed and it's messy, I wake up, I do not dwell on it. I don't get into the mental chatter of how it is a mess. I can be really good at blocking out, but I know overall it's just important for me to have a clean place. And by having a clean place, everything has its space and there's a system in place for that. Then what I'll also say, going back to the 10-minute timer, if I'm not motivated to do a task, let's say taking out the trash, because we live on the second floor and the trash is outside, and in the winter it's cold, so sometimes trash can build up next to the trash can, and I see it and I'm like, oh, I know I really need to take it outside, and I might wait till the evening, but then I think about it and I see it every time I walk by it. So I'll set a timer for 10 minutes and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take the garbage out. Or also the other one is our laundry is in our basement. So that's another thing as well. So just using a 10-minute timer to motivate and say, just for 10 minutes, I'm going to pick this up. Just for 10 minutes, I'm going to execute these tasks. I have packing lists for traveling. This is super, super helpful. So I have a templated packing list. And then what I'll do is I'll make a copy of it and then I'll tailor it and customize it based on the trip that we are about to embark on. This just makes it so much easier to relieve and clear out mental space. So instead of having to worry about making sure that I have everything that I need for packing, I've already built it into the list, and then I can just defer to the list to help guide me and remind me of the things that I need for packing. Also, birthday list of people in our life for friends and family. Put those as reminders on our calendars. So it's a set it and forget it. I don't have to revisit any sort of Google Doc every month or every week. I just get a reminder and it's on my calendar. That has been a lifesaver. And then also phone. I'm constantly taking inventory of the apps on my phone and cleaning them out, because I like to keep a very clean phone, easy to organize, not overwhelmed with apps. If I don't use them or haven't used them in the past month, then they go. And I get that there's that time that you might have to reinstall it, but it's just really what I love that organization. And if I'm not using it, let's get rid of it. And then I have my photos on my phone, which those automatically upload to the Google Photos. So then I'm able to free up that space on my phone and I can organize it in Google Photos, which is also another thing that I recommend, is get really clear on what core system you're going to use. So we use Google both personal and for business. There is iCloud with an iPhone, but I personally don't use that because I'm already using Google as cloud storage and I really want to streamline those systems. So I stick with just one of them and I use Google. So those are some ways that I really organize my personal life. And now I want to share a little bit about how we organize and manage our finances. And then I'll talk about some of the tools that I use to organize my business. So what I'll say about organizing the finances is that my husband and I are very much on the same page, and everyone merges, blends, doesn't merge. Everybody's journey and what they choose and how they choose to work and manage their finances with their spouse is completely different. My way is definitely not the right way. It really made sense for the way that our relationship is and how we manage our money. So without further ado, here we go. My husband and I, when we got married, we immediately combined finances. That was something that it was a pretty easy decision for both of us. We just decided that, hey, this is how we want to operate it. We really want to look at our entire financial picture and future as one, as opposed to keeping them separate. And like I said, every situation's different. Everyone has different preferences, but this was just what my husband and I decided, and we were both on the same page. So that was great. Since being married, we have tried many different approaches to organizing our money. We used Mint, which is an app, and we created budgets within Mint for just about anything and everything, from restaurants to groceries to personal care, everything. But the problem we ran into is that if one of us had a big night out with friends, we'd use up half of our restaurant budget. And if I wanted to take a girls' trip, it would eat up into our travel budget. And if my husband wanted to buy a board game, which I know it doesn't sound like a ton of money, which the board game would have been out of our entertainment budget. But if you have friends and family or spouses that play board games and who are very enthusiastic about board games, they can be quite the purchase. Let me tell you, they can be quite the purchase. So don't discount a really quality, like high-end board game, my friends. They can definitely be quite the purchase. And we kept kind of going over the budget every single month and in different areas, whether it was restaurants or entertainment. We were trying really hard to find this rhythm and find this flow. And it wasn't anything crazy, but it was enough for me to think, okay, what's the point of having a budget if we can't stick to it? And we both needed a little bit more accountability and visibility into our own spending. And we were using credit cards because we were in a phase of our life that we wanted all the points. We wanted all the benefits of putting the spending on credit cards and then reaping the rewards in the back end. We never carried a balance. We always paid it off. But I also didn't like that when you looked at your statement, it wasn't a true estimate to exactly like what was in there. I actually like and prefer money coming out immediately because that gives a true snapshot. Now, we still use credit cards in certain situations, which I'll get into in just a minute, but a little over a year ago, I was brainstorming and thinking, I'm like, how can we make this work? Like, how can we be more consistent? How can we take even more accountability and visibility? And so I had this idea, and I knew that I wanted to present this to my husband with this idea. And yes, when I say presented, I mapped it out on a piece of paper, wrote the benefits of it, and then I took it and I put it on a flip chart. Yes, I know, very crazy, but I knew that my husband would be asking me questions. Why do we do this? Why not this? And I felt like I was going up to the board of directors to suggest a change in how we operate our business, AKA operate our household finances. But nonetheless, it really made me think about, okay, why would this strategy work? What would be the benefit? What would be the gain? What would be the reasons why he would object? So it was a really great exercise, and I had a lot of fun. And we did this on a Friday night, and we had wine, and it was super fun. And here's the plan. Rather than operating from one main budget, we instead give each other monthly allowances. That way, it is up to us to manage our individual finances month to month. So if I wanted to go on a girls' trip and I knew that was coming in 3 months, that would mean I would need to stash away a certain amount every month to plan for it. And I would personally need to make sure that I would save for it. If one of us wanted to buy a snowboard, which my husband did, that meant that he would need to stash away a certain amount every month in order to get to a place where he could then comfortably buy his snowboard. So every month we would move our individual allowances to separate accounts, which then would be on debit cards. And we wouldn't include those debit cards or the accounts as part of our overall picture. So we didn't even see it when we looked in Mint, which now we use Monarch. And we did this over using credit cards because, again, like I shared before, it was instant and it was easier to manage.
And so I want to take a moment and back up and kind of walk you through the process of how we actually implemented this and what are some tangible steps that you can do. And again, maybe it's not this entire process, but maybe you're taking bits and pieces of this and integrating it into your world. So the first step was setting a budget using Google Sheets, which we had already set a budget based on the previous system that we were using. We had already set a budget in Google Sheets. So it was a matter of us copying that Google Sheet and then adjusting it to the way we want. And this is how it is set up today. There's a section for income, which there's a line for my income, my business draws, my husband's income, and then our rental income. So we own a rental property. It's 4 units. We live in 1 unit, and then we rent out the other 3. And so those are our main streams of income. And so when you're building yours, you can think of it this way of, okay, let's map out streams of income. Then we have another section called core overhead, which meant that these are the things that do not come out of our individual allowances, but do reduce the overall income. So things like mortgage, car payment, car insurance, any disability and life insurance, gas, and any investing that we do beyond our retirement accounts. So that is the core overhead. That does not get taken out of allowance. Then we have a section for individual allowances, and our allowances are the same. So we each get the same. And then we have a section for savings. And so when you have this budget set up in Google Sheets and you can really see how everything maps out, you can back into it and you can play with the numbers a little bit. You can see how much you're bringing in. You can see what's going out in core overhead. You can see, okay, if we give each other this allowance, how does that reduce the savings? Or you can start with saying, okay, we want to save X amount of savings. So then let's back into it to get to our individual allowances. And so I encourage you to give yourself some space and time to put together the budget and play with it and to really see, okay, what's coming through, what makes sense for individual allowances, how much do we want to save, what are we saving for, all that stuff. And so the nice thing about this is that then for majority of purchases, even when we're out together, we go to dinner, we'll put our debit cards to split the bill. And I know that some people might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's not romantic at all. But for us, it doesn't really matter anyway, because it's coming out of the same pie, I guess you could say, the same account, the same overall budget. But then that way there's just more accountability that like, okay, if we're going out to dinner, this is directly coming out of our individual allowances. And so it really brings that awareness to say, is this something that we want to do? And if I wanted to buy a luxury handbag, I know that, okay, every month I'm going to set aside a certain amount of money so that in 12 months, I'm in a position where I can go buy it, right? And I would say my husband and I are aggressive savers, simply because we also know that we want to continue buying real estate investment property as a way to generate income and generate overall wealth. And so we are definitely aggressive savers. And so we keep our individual allowances pretty minimal. But again, everything's relative. So you have to find what works for you as well. But going back to splitting the bill when we're out to dinner, even if it may not sound romantic, I actually don't label it. I don't make it mean that us splitting a bill isn't romantic, because I actually find it to be more romantic and like I get so much more value and benefit from saving as opposed to like the going out to dinner and splitting it with debit cards and whatnot. So, and again, I recognize that not everyone combines their finances with their spouse. So if we're in a situation also where it doesn't make sense for us to use debit cards, we each have a credit card that is to the same account for Amex. And so an example of this might be if we're out with friends and we go to dinner, rather than them putting in 2 separate cards, they might put in 1 card. So we'll default and use the Amex to make things easier. And then we'll settle up on the back end as well, which this is a part of the process is that weekly I do a full review of our accounts and spending, except for our individual accounts, because his money, his allowance is his and my allowance is mine. And that way, if we do put something on the Amex, I can go back in and use Splitwise to go ahead and divvy it up and split it. And then every week we are settling up for things that were shared expenses on the Amex. And I realize this may sound labor intensive, but I will say it takes no more than 30 minutes a week. And using this strategy and this process has allowed us to save so much more money, because the old system that we used, it was really hard to get a true insight of like how much money was coming in and how much money was going out, because everything was like on a 30-day rotation cycle, where with this, it's very clear of the fixed expenses like mortgage, car payment, car insurance, disability, life insurance, And then any investing beyond retirement plans and gas, which gas is a variable expense, but we kind of budget a certain amount every single month that we expect to go to gas. And so with that, it's really clear on if we don't go over our individual allowances, which we have rules that if someone does go over their individual allowance, there's penalties for that, but I'll save that for another episode. They're just fun penalties. There's nothing major. It has helped us save so much money. One of the hesitations, and now I feel like I'm kind of bouncing all over, so I apologize. I hope you're still with me here, is that the benefit of using the credit card in the beginning, like I said, was really because we were able to acquire points and then use that for travel and everything else. But then what had happened is that the desire to use a debit card became more beneficial because what mattered more to me was that we were saving money, not necessarily getting points. And that's really how I chose to position that and still look at it today. And it's been amazing. That's what I have for you. I'm going to do a quick recap. So one, even if you're not combining finances or income, I would still recommend setting a budget. You can use Google Sheets, make a section for income, make a section for core overhead. And then if you have individual allowances, that can be a section, and then also a section for savings. And then really sticking to that. I think actually money in general is not only the tactical of like setting a budget, but the actual part of sticking to a budget or not overspending is really rooted in a lot of the mindset stuff, which in March is really the whole theme is about money. It's about manifestation. It's about mindset. And so I'm going to dive deeper into some of those categories and topics when we get into next month, but super excited about that because my money story and journey in the past 5 years has drastically changed and have gone from making very little money to having some business debt to now totally a 180. And I want to share some of the things that really worked for me to get out of a scarcity mindset and into abundant mindset, even though it was really uncomfortable to do that. So we shall move on to the business. So the business and how I organize business. Here are a couple things that I do. I use LastPass. If you're not familiar with LastPass, it is a software application that you can use for Google Chrome, and it stores passwords. So it'll automatically populate when you visit a website because you store it. And then what it does is if you, let's say, log into Podia or log into ConvertKit, rather than trying to remember your password, LastPass does it for you, and then it'll auto-populate so you don't have to worry about it. And you can also use it to share logins with your team without exposing the password. So that's a really great software tool that I love to use to help organize and make things faster and like make things more streamlined. Another one, software tool, which you guys know, is Asana. I use it for my central business hub. I talk about this in Stressed Out to Streamline training. So if you haven't gone through that training yet, you can head to shediditherway.com/SOS for Stressed Out to Streamlined. Use Google Drive. So the way that my Google Drive is organized reflects the same organization system I use for Asana to help keep things consistent. So in Asana, I've got 4 teams. I've got an executive team, a marketing team, a products and services team, and then I've got an operations team. I have those same 4 teams also reflected into Google Drive as 4 folders. So keeping that consistency between the software systems so that it's better organized. In Gmail, I've got different folders. Labels is what Gmail calls it. So I've got folders for me to review at a later time, a folder for me to delegate, a folder for my assistant to go in and respond to, and then other areas for products and services that I have. Again, still reflecting back to that Google Drive and Asana organization. So having folders for products and services, marketing, executive, and then operations and clients and things like that. So keeping that super clean, super organized. And then the Google Calendar is another one. So I have different calendars for different reasons inside my main Google Calendar, from content creation, launch promotion, Elevate University, Podcast Your Way, any subcontract work, and a personal calendar. And they're all color coordinated differently. And this has helped so much to visually see where I'm spending my time, what I'm doing, and make things stand out, because sometimes if they're the same color, they tend to all blend together and it's easy for things to be missed. And I also talk about the Google Calendar inside of Stressed Out to Streamlined. So make sure you can sign up. It's completely free. You can go to shediditherway.com/SOS to be able to get access to that as well. But I do want to say, as we wrap up today's episode, that if you're looking to get extremely organized in your life and business, I definitely encourage you to check out Elevate University. That is our year-long membership program. It's a coaching program, and every month is a new topic. It's a new course that drops, and February's course is all about being scalable from the start. So I'm walking you through how to organize Gmail, your calendar, your Google Drive, how to identify processes, create templates, and then automate them using Asana and more. And so you're going to get instant access to that along with last month's, which was unstoppable goal setting. And to join and to check out, you can head to shediditherway.com/elevate. Again, you get immediate access to all of the content and information that's in there. And in addition to weekly coaching, we actually added monthly standing co-working hours. So every month there's a co-working hour to help you plan your content. There's a co-working hour to help you do a goal review, to look back on the previous month, to set the goals for the current month, and then to plan for the future. And then also a co-working hour for calendar planning, making sure that you are integrating the calendar blocking in a way that sets you up for success. So, and I know some people have challenges with calendar planning and about how when they do calls and why isn't this working and whatnot. So that's what those co-working hours are for. And I'm so excited. And I would love to know how you organize your business and life. So take a screenshot and share with us and tag us on Instagram. Until next time, keep doing it your way, my friend.
If you enjoyed today's podcast episode, you can head on over to shediditherway.com where you can access the entire vault of She Did It Her Way podcast episodes. And you can also access free trainings and resources all about how to make the ultimate leap from your 9 to 5. And if you enjoyed today's podcast episode, I would be so grateful if you headed on over to iTunes and left a review letting me know what you love about the She Did It Her Way podcast. Until next time, keep doing it your way.